What's up, guys and gals? Red Icing back to answer some of your questions. Thanks to an influx of subs, I cannot answer them all, so feel free to submit them again for next week. I've read all of the questions from last week's video and will prioritize them for next week, if they are asked again. If you want to submit a question for me to answer in the comments, put red at the start of your comment, and I'll get back to you. If you want to try to have your question featured in an upcoming video, start your comment off with the phrase, "This has been bugging me." Remember to keep the "This has been bugging me" comments to the community questions video, as it will make it easier for me to notice it, and the cutoff date for these questions is each Thursday. Please restrict your comment to one question. Disclaimers need to be said for this video. First of all, I am not an expert, just a fan and a researcher. Some of the answers may contain my own opinions and will differ from yours, so leave a comment detailing why, if you have the time. Lastly, do not take any of the answers as concrete info. They are suggestions and theories, so nothing is proven in a lot of these questions. The first question comes from Leo, and it is, so it seems the way you keep pace in the game is similar to P4, as with the expulsion example from the castle dungeon. If you do not complete a certain objective by a certain date, it'll be similar to the P4 game over screen. For example, you didn't save one of the characters on time, you will get a game over screen. It's that simple. Will there be different reasons and incentives to finish the dungeon in a timely manner? And how do you think we will have to pace ourselves? Well, Leo, thanks for commenting on the channel again. You've been really good at keeping this up and being very supportive. I do believe it'll be similar to Persona 4. As for the reasons and incentives, well, there is a theory saying that completing a dungeon a certain way can lead to different results. If you take a look at the mission objectives up in the corner, it'll say something like, take care of Kamishoda carefully, which means there must be a way to not take care of him carefully. That might be an issue right there, and it may go into the timeline. Also, there's always an incentive for finishing a dungeon early. It allows you to go into the real world and find out what exactly you can do, get social link stuff done, and generally you can go back if you want, if you have the extra time, to do some grinding. It's just very much similar to P4, at least in my mind. The next question comes from Kisa Lover. This has been bugging me. Literally all we know about Crow is that he's associated with, well, crows. The only official art we have of him has a black wing right behind him. The point is, MC's persona in our scene has black wings. Does this show a link between the MC and Crow, or is it just a coincidence? I know you had two more questions in your comment, but I'm gonna just answer the first one to save some time and get to other people's questions. Crow is an enigma. I cannot tell anything about him right now. He can go in so many different ways. I think they added in Crow just to have another character in a different year from the other teammates who's also male. So that might be just his whole thing. The only thing I can say for sure between the main character and Crow is that they'll be working together. I cannot give answers on this because even though I've read dozens and dozens of theories upon him, I just can't put anything down, and if I say anything now, it could misinform you. If I say any of the theories, people will take it as truth. It's just a really, really sensitive subject, and I don't want to misinform everybody on this channel. The next question comes from Yashiro Odonashi, and his question is, do you think one of the main heroines may be a shadow like in P1? And did you notice that the fast food restaurant, one of the people looks like you from Persona 4? And did you know about a theory where the secret boss is the P3 main character for Persona 5? Okay, I know you answered more than one question, and I'm going to answer them all really quick. Main heroine being a shadow, closest I can say is Morgana right now. Even though shadows don't seem to be making a return to P5, but if we take something of a shadow-like relation in P5, we could take that as an example and relate it, and the only person we can relate it to is Morgana. Yes, I noticed the blue-haired you from the fast food scene. I don't think it's him. I think it's just recycling assets or just putting a simple reference in there. Most likely you will never get to talk to him. He's just a customer. He may appear a few times while you're working at that job, but that's about it. And as to the theory about the secret boss being the P3 main character, I have to say this now. Please stop trying to say that characters from previous games are going to be very important in Persona 5. When you take Persona 5, it's its own new game. It's practically a new IP, even though it's within the Persona series. If we bring back old members and try to make them important, that's like saying Persona 5 was never really its own game. It was just an extension of a past game. That just doesn't seem fair. And also, to the people who are just getting into Persona 5 as their first Persona game, it just seems like an entire FU to them from the developers of Atlas to say, hey, you'll never truly understand what's going on unless you played all the previous games before. If you keep on trying to bring in old characters into what P5 will be, it's just aimed towards old fans. It's just aimed towards old fans, and it's not considering new ones. It's a bad business decision. If you want to have P5 to be a great game and have people go back and play the other games, just make P5 a great game and leave some of the past aspects out, or leave the past characters out of the new game. It's a new number title. If you want to bring back past characters, put it in a spin-off like Persona Q or Persona Arena Ultimax or Persona 4 Arena. Yay, we can have it there. A number title does not have this kind of aspect to it. Everybody's been saying Minato will show up. Everybody's saying, well, Aegis will show up. Even Chie and Yosuke. But I do not think it would be a good decision to do that. It's like saying, hey, we have this new guy on the team. He's a great guy. He could do anything the past guys can do, you know, for whatever it may be, a baseball, soccer, or American-style football. But hey, let's just bench him and put in some of the old characters in for a while, even though he hasn't shown anything wrong with him yet. I'm sorry, but I just have to say that now. It's annoying to see all these comments. And even though you said it may be a secret boss, or Minato might be the secret boss, I do not think this will happen. If they want to answer the Minato question, put it in a spin-off. I'm sorry, I know my opinion may really, really disagree with you right there, but that is just an annoying thing I've been seeing, and it's just not a good game design decision. Oh, I went on a rant there. Kind of sorry about that. If I sounded too aggressive, please forgive me. Moving on to the next question from Dant Pointy. This has been bugging me. In the first trailer vid, it shows Morgana in front of a billboard with the deadly sins behind her. However, I counted them and there are 9 of them, not 7. Seeing there as 9 party members, could it be connected to each of them? Thanks for bringing this up, because the 7 deadly sins weren't always the 7 deadly sins. They used to be the 8 cardinal sins, and before that, it was the 9 Roman sins. There was so many versions of this, and in fact, there's been references to a dozen sins way back. I've taken a look into this and the 9 Roman sins to match up with the 9 party members. That didn't work. Then I looked at the 8 cardinal sins to exclude the MC. It still doesn't seem it works. I cannot say that sins are directly connected to the party members. I know they're connected to the bosses, but that's it. People keep on trying to put deadly sins with the party members, but they show too many aspects of different sins, and people just seem to focus on which one fits in their own theories. And reading all those theories, I see tons of contradictions. So when it comes to the 9, actually that fits in with the probability of having 9 dungeons. The 7 deadly sins, then you have a dungeon where you fight what you thought was the boss, and then the 9th dungeon where you fight the actual boss. There's just too many theories out there. The next question is kind of redundant. I have to say a little geeky opinion thing on it. Bobby Gladney has asked, will Persona 5 be in English? While it's obvious it will be, I wish they could put a, and this is just a personal opinion of mine, I wish they could put in a subs not dubs kind of thing, to where you could play it with the Japanese voice actors, but it's played as a sub/dub anime kind of thing, where yes, all the user interface is still in English, but when you go into the cutscenes, you just get subs, and they still have the Japanese voice actors. that would be awesome in my opinion. And I can understand how it came about because we haven't had an English voice acting cast announced yet. It still made me think about some cool theories. Thanks again, Bobby Gladney. The next question comes from Michael Pallady. Pallady? I don't know. None of the characters so far seem like heavy-hitting magic users, like Yukiko. Will there be a heavy-hitting magic user, or will the algorithm of the teammates change? I'm glad you asked this. Heavy-hitting magic users are a staple. You need at least one in your party in both Persona 3 and 4. And I'm relating that instead of P1 and P2 because Persona 5 seems to have more aspects of P3 and P4. While it does seem a little weird, I think they're trying to hide that fact. Atlus has been hiding so many details of this game, which is not surprising as it's a story-based game. They released too much, we already played the game, and if somebody does a Let's Play on it, well, guess what? Most of the information is told to the person watching the Let's Play. They don't have to play the game themselves. So when we go back to the heavy-hitting magic user, my top contenders are Haru, Yusuke, and Morgana. And I know a lot of people have been saying not Morgana because Zoro seems more like a physical type, but I got an upcoming video about that. Thanks for the question, Michael. The next question comes from Marcus Mosley, and he asks, could the Phantom Thieves have a crossover with SEES and the investigation team? They've done it in the past with the last 2 games, and the situations made sense for them to work together. What could be the situation this time? And what would the interactions be like? I gotta say, if any characters come in from previous games, it's more suited for a spin-off. So if they do something like Persona Q or Persona 4 Arena Ultimax or Persona 4 Arena, it would be a better environment for that to happen. And if it does, yeah, we would probably see something like authority-based characters getting on to the thieves about being criminals. But then again, they have to learn to understand that, hey, we were in a similar conundrum. We had to fight similar enemies when you think about it. So maybe we'll have a Persona Q2 or something like that, or Persona Double Q, you know, QQ. Simple question, but we have to state what we could say almost for sure right now, which is an oxymoron. The next question comes from Naoto Shirogane. What if Persona 5's situation is similar to Persona 3's The Answer? Also, is there a chance that Anne is in the team before the Lust Dungeon? Well, I'll answer the second question first. Anne's introductory dungeon is the Lust Dungeon, which is the first dungeon. She will most likely join the team halfway through the dungeon, be instrumental in taking down the boss as the two are connected. And as it to being similar to Persona 3 FES, The Answer, something has to be set up before we get something like The Answer. I think you're thinking a little bit too far ahead, or for all I know, I might be wrong, and there may be more similarities than what I can actually say right now. Thanks again for the question. The next question comes from Tonfaman33, which relates back to a previous question. Remember the words Luxuria, Ira, and the other names for the 7 deadly sins? How do those factor into the personas? Do each of them fill a specific sin? And could there be some sort of boost they get in their respective dungeons? I already answered most of that in a previous question, but the whole boost in your own introductory dungeon seems interesting. While I don't think that would happen, in my own opinion, it would be cool to see. I mean, most of the time you get a new teammate, they are usually higher leveled, but later in the game, the rest of the characters kind of catch up to it. Or if you're one of those people that just grinds and grinds and grinds and then gets to a higher level before you get the new character, which doesn't seem to be the case in a lot of situations. Once you get a new character, the boost could just be that they're a few levels over than what your main party is right then. I mean, it'll start as a set amount. Like for instance, when Anne joins the team, she will always be level 10. You may get her at level when the rest of the party is at level 8. So that could be the only way I see a boost actually happening to a person in their own introductory dungeon. Thanks again for the question. The next question comes from Sean Murphy. In the third trailer vid, you can actually hear 4 distinct voices talking in the opening when the Phantom Thieves are running past, during that whole black bars scene. It's clear the voices are Morgana, Anne, and Ryuji's, but there is one voice that is in a deep male register. I don't believe it's Yusuke and it can't be Crow, Does this mean that the MC will be speaking throughout the game? Or was this perhaps just a thing Atlas put out there to grab our interest? Most likely Atlas grabbing our interest, but also it would be nice for the main character just to say obvious things throughout the game, and for him to have a dark voice kind of fits in with the whole criminal, possible traitor kind of thing. I mean, hopefully they don't go all Fallout 4 giving them a voice, because that just ruined immersion in my mind for Fallout 4. Having him say obvious things at certain times makes sense, because they were kind of alarmed right there because the pyramid was falling down. It would make sense to scream out or say something obvious. Thanks again, Sean. The next question comes from Doc Black 59. In P4, Say is warning the protagonist to try and protect the thieves, as a new third group has been mentioned which has been controlling the enemies of the thieves, or the enemies the thieves have to face. If the police are... It seems like the police are warning them to protect them, because if the thieves keep interfering, the police won't be able to protect them. Well, this just goes into the vigilante sort of thing. Yeah, maybe in Batman storylines, the city accepts it because Batman gets results. But honestly, Batman is still a criminal. I like to think about it like that. Plus, there may be a chance that Say is trying to protect them just because she knows that if you go outside the bounds of law to take somebody in, it doesn't create anything. It just creates chaos even more. I mean, yes, sometimes it can go good, but honestly, most times when people take the law into their own hands, they just end up screwing things over even more. So I think Say is just trying to avoid that situation, because honestly, it would make her job a lot harder. But she doesn't want to do the obvious thing and follow along with the plans of probably her superior. And the next question comes from, oh god, Zero Synchro Omega. Do you think previous Persona characters can have a major, somewhat relevant role? Answered that earlier. No. Only references and small cameos. They cannot take big roles in Persona 5 as it is a numbered title. Save that for spin-offs. The next question comes from Start Screen. First of all, we saw Yu Narukami in the fast food restaurants. Also, we saw something about stealing Futaba's heart in the bank/church dungeon, and she becomes a later teammate. Is it possible that we steal our team members' heart before they join? I don't think we're going to be stealing our own teammates' hearts. They joined because they wanted to be part of the vigilante. Futaba is just probably issuing a challenge to the Phantom Thieves, as she has heavy influences in both conspiracy and the occult and black magic. So she was probably just leading them to their next target. And by the way, Makoto is related to the Beelzebub dude, not Futaba. Futaba is somehow related to the Sphinx from the Pyramid Dungeon. Just wanted to point that out. Thanks again for the question. And if I answer that kind of quick, I'm sorry. And the last question comes from Yayoi, UI Shade, or All Shade. Beelzebub has always been the demon that represented gluttony. But doesn't the bank dungeon give off a greed vibe? Unless greed and gluttony are interchangeable. Honestly, if you look at greed, greed is the ultimate sin of the 7 deadly sins. Not wrath, not any of that. Because greed points out your ultimate wants. Gluttony just means living in excess at the expense of others. Greed means having what you want. So yes, they are kind of interchangeable. While there is a lot of money hanging around and it kind of gives off this avarice feel, having Beelzebub kind of represents that this boss character was taking money from people in some way. Yeah, it's a whole which point of view way you look at it, but that's it. It's just most likely gluttony because it's Beelzebub at this point. Thanks for the question. Well, that's the ends of this community questions video. Sorry if I didn't get to your question this week. Feel free to post it again, as it is important to reward the people who try the most. If you want me to answer you in the comments, start off your comment with red and I'll get back to you. If you want to submit your question for a future video, start it off with the phrase, "This has been bugging me." Thanks to all the commenters and supporters of the channel. It's making this all worthwhile. Again, I cannot think of a closer, so goodbye.